Chasing It Outdoors, right here on the Chasing It Outdoors podcast. All right, welcome to the Chasing It Outdoor podcast, right here on the Chasing It Outdoor network. First off, we want to thank you for tuning in today's show. And today's show is brought to you by all of us right here at Chasing It Outdoors, which is really just me. I'm your host, Robbie Surface. And on today's show, we've got a local guy by the name of Clay Martin. How are you, Clay?
I'm all right. How are y'all?
Dude, just hanging out. Clay is first and foremost a land manager and has recently created, on top of it, drone deer recovery and services. Now, I mentioned the land management side of it because he spends a lot of his days outside in the woods where the game that we chase lives. I presume that helps him a lot when it comes to recovery because he understands topography, where animals live, and where they tend to go when injured. Clay, take a minute and tell us a little bit about yourself, buddy.
Well, I just turned 38 years old.
I've got in here. I was not going to ask how old you are.
The place I manage is called Rock House Farm, about 4,000 acres. And yeah, we do deer and quail, and there's 2 ponds to be managed on the place.
Okay.
And
how long have you been hunting?
Sir?
I said, how long have you been hunting? I didn't mean to cut you off. There's a little bit of a delay.
How long have I been hunting?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know, since I was 5 or 6.
So a long time. And then that's where I've got in here in my notes to not ask how old he is.
Yeah.
Well, how did you go about getting into the land management side of things?
I don't really know. It just worked out that way. I worked for my dad doing construction in my early 20s, and then that kind of just, it didn't work out that great. And I went to work for a farmer for a little bit, and while I was there, I ended up going to work where I'm at now, kind of how it ended up.
Mm-hmm. Working with your parents is often difficult. At least I know it was for me when we were in the restaurant business back up in Atlanta. So, yeah, I'm glad it worked out the way it did because I don't know that I'd have gotten to know you otherwise. And we're going to take that and go ahead and get into the nuts and bolts of this show, which is the drone services that you offer. What made you want to get into the drone recovery as a service?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, what made you want to do that and offer that as a service?
Well, at the plantation, I have to track a lot of deer anyway. and I've had a few dogs, and nothing against dogs. None of the dogs I had were very good at tracking deer, and that's probably because I didn't spend a lot of time with them or I didn't have the right dog. And I seen the drone, how it worked and everything, and I really liked it. Not only for deer tracking, but also for other management purposes. Where you can do population or whatever, really.
Yeah, and that was going to kind of lead into my next question, in all honesty. What other services do you offer with the drone, and what other opportunities outside of recovering wounded game can the drone be used for?
Man. Of course, you could do your population, and then I don't know.
How would you do that? You're just flying the drone and just kind of taking a count? Yeah,
you'd have to have 2 people, and I'm sure somebody knows. I haven't done a lot of it, but trying to get the sex of every deer would be difficult. Mm-hmm. But you could definitely do the population. You just grid it off, and it's not going to be an exact number, but you can get close to how many deer you have on your property.
Okay. Yeah, and that makes sense just by counting. I guess early season, when they've got velvet on, you can tell antlers by them, but once they drop that velvet, it's a lot harder to tell in the thermal, correct?
Yeah, but I mean, I can do it in the daytime. So the best flying times is, well, if it's cloudy like it is today, you can fly and do all day. But if the sun's out, you would need to get started at, right at daylight and fly till that sun starts getting up. Once the sun starts getting up, it is difficult. Everything becomes hot. Every stump, every tree, every limb.
I got you. So
every rock.
I would have thought that flying at night would have been more better, I guess you could say.
It is. Everything sticks out like a sore thumb at night. The only thing is at night is you got to use that spotlight as far as if you're, when you're trying to determine if it's a wounded deer or whatever, you're going to want to look at it. So you got to get that spotlight, and it's not always that easy to get the spotlight on the animal. Like if you were doing, if it's injured, it's not that bad. It's not going to run away. But if you're trying to do herd analysis or see if it's a buck or doe or whatever, and you got to get that spotlight on it, chances are it's going to run. And it's not that easy. Where in the daytime, if you wanted to do it, you get there at daylight, start flying it, and everything I see that's hot, all I got to do is click over to the daytime camera, and they don't even know that. I mean, they'll hear it, but they ain't got a spotlight shining on them, so they're not really running. The animals don't really run in the woods from the drone if the spotlight's not involved. You put them out in the middle of a peanut field in, July, August, you fly it over them. My experience is they're going to run from it.
And that was one of the questions I was going to ask a little bit later, because it has been, at the shop at Shiver Outdoor and Archery where I work, the drone gets brought up quite frequently, and you've got those guys that say, yeah, absolutely not. I don't want the drone over the top of my property. Or, yes, I think the drone is a good tool for herd analysis, population, finding the deer that I shot that I'd really like to recover. What's your thoughts on the drone flying over property and how it affects deer that's not been shot, Yeah,
I mean, I don't think it might spook them and they run 100 yards, but as long as I don't chase the deer, I mean, it's just like anything up there.
Okay, so the guys that are worried about, I don't want that drone flying over my property and scaring all my deer. Let's see, you've had your drone, 4 months or so now? And all of the time that you spent airborne, you've not noticed any frightening of the animals, and they don't come back?
No, I would never say that it would do that.
Yeah, and I didn't think so either. I had Lane come out here at the house when he first got his, and we were looking for a few deer that I was wanting to hunt once bow season came in, and he flew right over the top of them. I don't know at what footage or feet, how high he was flying, but those deer were on camera after they walked off from where he could see them within 30 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, you're never gonna, spook them like where they run away and don't come back. I mean, where I work, we bird hunt and go through the woods with 2 bird dogs, a horse, and a Jeep, and we'll hunt a section in the afternoon, get the deer on camera. So, I mean, they're hard to spook.
Right.
Like that bad,
Yeah. I mean, and I just hear it talked about sometimes at the shop where guys are like, man, I don't want that thing flying over my property. Dude, I mean, it's really not that big a deal. Trust me.
No, it ain't. I don't know why,
Well, I guess with it being new and it's still kind of different for the folks around here, there's not I ain't going to say there's not a lot of technical folks around here, but it is new. And that kind of brings me into my next question. There's always a topic between drone recovery or dog recovery. And I've seen early on, at least, where there was a couple of debates on Facebook. And I know you well enough to know that you're not going to throw jabs. And if if you don't agree with something, you're not necessarily going to chime in. You just kind of just let it go. That's just the type of person that you are. At least that's what I've gathered. But in your opinion, is the drone superior to dogs? And if so, why?
The only thing I can say about the drone is you could probably cover more ground without having to do a lot of walking. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you one's better than the other. The drone is the way I wanted to track deer. And matter of fact, I have a dog coming that I'm going to use with the drone this coming season. If he'll bay a deer. But the river bottoms, I'd say the dog is better, especially early season when that canopy's so thick. And the other morning it was foggy, and I had one of our local deer trackers find. I went and looked for the deer for an hour and never found the deer, and he came and found the deer 200 yards from where I was looking. So it's not perfect. It's not the best. I mean, it has its flaws, and I guess other drone pilots would be like, he didn't do as good a job as I could. But no. I mean, we're all human, and we all make mistakes. So,
well, and I said all of that. I think there's actually a place for both.
I agree.
Both tools. A mechanic that works on vehicles for a living, I mean, he don't have just one screwdriver or wrench in his toolbox. He's got multiple tools, and there's often a time where one tool will work better for that job than another tool.
Yeah.
So you're bringing a dog in to be a part of, on top of it, drone deer recovery services for next year? Oh, dude, that's cool.
Yeah, we had, I had plenty of some friends that got deer dogs and all that, and they always wanted to assist me if I had one that was shot in the leg or injured and it needed to be bayed. But that's really hard. If I go to a track, they've called me to come bring my drone, track a deer, and then I get there and we find the deer's got his leg blowed off and he really needs to be bayed up. Well, then, I don't feel like I need to accept the payment because they need to call the man with the dog to finish the job. So I just, went ahead and said, I'll get a dog and add the dog and we'll be done with that. We can find the deer with the drone, and we can go in there and bay the deer too. And, I won't use them every time or every track because a lot of them are dead.
Right.
But there's plenty of ones that are not dead. And then if you try to walk in there just without anything baying them, or, they're going to get up and run off, but they can outrun a human. But if you put that dog with them, they can't outrun him, and he can bay it and all that.
Right. And then I'm going to go back a little bit to something that you just said, and that was, talking about not taking payment. Folks, that's the type person that Clay is. So I want y'all to know when y'all listen to this that he's not a guy that's just out there to get, every dollar that he can. He's an extremely genuine person. And as he just said, if he didn't feel like he could finish the job, he's not 100% sure he should take payment. That speaks volumes about him. Clay, how far will you travel in and around our area with the drone?
I think the farthest I've been is about 60, 70 miles from Leesburg.
I can hear you working in the background. I hope I ain't holding you up from too much work.
No, you good. No, I did end up going to Macon one day. So however far that is from Leesburg.
That's a good hour and a half.
Yeah.
All right. What do you think your recovery rate for the drone was this year? And I know there was times that you stayed extremely busy and, like, all right, here's your deer. I'm going to drop a pin. Here are the coordinates. I've got 9 other calls. I've got to take off. What do you think your recovery rate was?
Somewhere I didn't keep up with it like I should because I really didn't think it was going to be as good as it was. And I'm going to log it a lot better this coming year. But I'd say I was around 70, 80%. Now, this is where the dog hunters will probably argue with me. That's not on the tailgate. That's me finding the deer, whether it was dead, whether it was we did get to get in there and kill it, or I confirmed that the deer was not going to die, in my opinion, or our opinion, sitting around looking at the screen. So technically I did find the deer. Let's say we didn't put it on the tailgate. I found the deer. We came to an agreement that the deer was not going to die. So, they got that closure.
Right.
But that deer's not on the tailgate. Could some of those deer that we didn't get, that we found, could they have been bayed? I'm sure some of them could have, and they could have got in there, if you ran it a mile and wore it out. But then again, is that really,
exactly?
Is that really hunting? Now, is that really recovering, or is that a new hunt? I don't know.
Yeah, and that's a debate that I think that is in and around the drone industry for what we're doing, if you will, is that a new hunt? Or are you using that drone as a tool to go kill, or are you using that drone to recover? And that's why I mentioned the land management side of things for you, because I want people to understand that this dude's not just a technical nerd, if you will. I don't know how technical he is. I mean, I get the opportunity to work on his bow, and at times there's like, which way I got to move the sight, or what do I do with this? So that's where the land management, I think, plays in part into all of this, is because you can look at that animal and say, yeah, I don't think that deer's mortally wounded. He'll live to see another day, and you'll get another opportunity to hunt him. Or that deer's not going to survive. We need to go to the next step in order to recover said animal. Because you spend so much time outside, you spend so much time with these animals, whether it's in a tree stand or, on a tractor or a mule or on your feet, quail hunting or whatever, what you're doing because you spend so much more time outside than most of us.
Right.
When do you think your busiest time of the year was this past year?
Right before Thanksgiving, and right after Thanksgiving. So November.
Okay. Yeah, because I can remember being a kid and my dad killing his biggest deer on Thanksgiving Day, and he always killed really good deer in or around or on Thanksgiving. And that's kind of what I expected you to say. But I just wanted to ask for those that are listening to get a good understanding of when the busy time is, and when the rut is in and around our area, even though that we already know that, or at least think we do. Yep. In all of your recoveries, your calls, are there more calls for archery related shots or firearm related shots?
Probably firearm.
Firearm. So you get more calls for.
You just got a lot more. Rifle hunters.
Mm-hmm. All right. And then, which ways do you advertise, and how can someone find you?
Mainly only advertise through Facebook. I haven't really done much more than that.
Which I know you got the brochure, because we got some of those at the shop.
Yeah, I do have the brochures.
Do you plan on doing any more advertising for going forward, or are you just going to kind of stick with just the Facebook?
I probably would just, do the brochures at the deer processors and do the Facebook. I mean, I think it's good enough.
Well, you stayed busy enough, because I know the times that I seen you out in different places that, you were at a family event, but you wasn't there for my family's event. You were actually there looking for a deer that one of our family members shot.
That's right.
And you always stay on the go. So it sounds like the Facebook stuff's working, plus word of mouth and whatnot. Well, is there anything else that you would like to add that hasn't been mentioned? We're right here around 20 minutes, which is what I told you that I'd try to keep it to or around, because I know you're working. Is there anything that you would like to add to educate people and give them an opportunity to get a better understanding as to why the drone is a tool that should and can be used? Or or anything for that matter?
Trying to think of something we haven't covered.
Yeah, you've got the floor is open, and here is your opportunity. I don't know how many people will listen to this, as this is one of the first podcasts that I've done on my own. Of course, I'm on a couple of other podcasts with a guy out of Atlanta that we've done for a long time, and then do some Bows and Brews stuff with the guy from TikTok, Scotty Evans. But this is one of my first podcasts on my own, so I'm learning as we're going. And
well, I mean, me too. You know, the drone it does great for deer recovery, and then it, you know, I've got to really do some things to figure out on doing like density and stuff like that. And then really open to whatever.
Yeah, some of those other services that can be provided.
Yeah, there's somebody that might think of something that I haven't thought of, you know, and then we just go from there.
Now,
one thing it does do, it'll find every wild hog you have on your property.
That's what I was fixing to say.
I can't tell you that we can take the drone and use it to kill them, but we can find the spots they live. And you know, I'm a big dog hunter and for hogs, and that's why I really don't ever talk bad about the deer dogs. That's people's passion. They spend a lot of time, and I admire that. And I will never. You'll never tell me, or I'll never tell you the drone is superior to the dogs. I mean, I think the dogs are just as good. This is just the way I want to track deer. And I'm adding a dog to it too. So there you go. But as far as all the things the drone can do on your property, I don't really know. But I do not think it scares the deer in any way that you would have to be worried to not want the drone over your property. And yes. I know I hear some people talk about privacy and all that. I mean, I'm not out there looking for you. If I happen to accidentally cross a property line, because I don't always know where the property lines are, and I don't 100% know the rules on that. I know that you're in airspace when you're up there, but
yeah, you've got to go through and do all of the legal things in order to fly that thing, correct? Classes and licenses, etc.
Yeah, you have to have a unmanned aircraft license, and it's pretty tough. The way I passed it, well, first I bought the study guide online, which was just literature, and I read it, and I was not learning. And one day I was sitting there, and I just went to YouTube and typed in UAS. I think that's what it's called, study guide. And I just watched videos. And without that, I wouldn't have passed it. And I'll be honest with you, I barely passed it, but I did pass it. And then after you have it, you don't ever have to worry about, as far as I know, you don't have to worry about losing it. I mean, maybe if you did something, you could. Now, if you did something against the law, of course you could lose it. But as far as having to take it again in 2 years, I'll have to take a renewal, but that's not pass or fail. You just have to do it just to kind of
continue in education kind of thing.
Right. But yeah, you can lose it if you break the law. I mean, you can't drink and fly drones, and you can't. There's a lot of rules that, you know, if you were interested in, you could read about. But
yeah. Well, and again, I know you well enough to know that you're not just intentionally flying over property lines and buzzing in windows and trying to see what they're watching on TV and who's winning the ball game. And, you know, I know better than that. And unfortunately, there is some yahoos out there that I don't want it over my property. I shoot it down. But there is.
I think that's a big. You shoot a drone out of the sky. That's a big deal. I'm pretty sure it's a felony. I'm not sure because it is in airspace.
Mm-hmm. It's not your space. You don't own the air above your property.
Yeah, I mean, it's got a right to be there. Now I understand I can't be above your house looking in your swimming pool in July. I agree with that, but
wouldn't want to either. Because your wife will have your head.
There you go.
All right, dude. Well, I really appreciate you coming on and doing this. We've gone a little over what I was trying to keep you at because I know you're working, but I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. Give everybody out there listening your Facebook, info and the contact info to get you in case they need you. Of course, now deer season's out, but if little Rah-Rah runs off and mama can't find Rah-Rah, can they call Clay and have Clay come find Rah-Rah?
They can. I will say this: dogs are not easy to find. And other drone people might argue with me and say they have good luck doing it. I don't. Dogs, first off, if it's a hunting dog, that might be a little easier because he's going to be in the woods. But like a little pet dog, a lap dog, a Shih Tzu, a poodle, when they run off, they tend to get scared and they go under a house, they go under a car, they get in the garage. And I'll be honest, I don't find them. Okay. And I always tell everybody that it's going to come home,
Right.
And they do. Most of them text me and say, "Hey, we found it." And I've gone and looked for some. I try to help. I got the thing to help people. But, when you're looking for a deer, you got a pretty good area if the deer's dead where he's at. When you look for a runaway dog, you don't have a clue where to look.
Yeah. And the only reason why I even mention that is because I know another gentleman that's found some dogs using his, and I'm going to get him on the podcast too here soon, hopefully. But I know he's done it, and I assume that would be a service that you would offer just because of the type person that you are, not for another way to try to put $1 in your pocket. It's just who you are. And like you said, you got this to try to help people and yourself. And if Rah-Rah runs off and you call Clay and, he says, yeah, he's coming back. He's probably under a car right now. It's going to be tough to find. It's probably going to be tough to find.
The way I do the dogs is, for a deer, if you call me for a deer, I do charge you whether I find the deer or not. And then so there's a service fee and then there's a finder fee on the deer. With the dog, man, people's hearts are broke when their dog's missing. And I don't charge them to come. I only charge them if I find the dog. Maybe I should charge them to come. Maybe that would make me want to do it a little more. But my success rate on finding dogs isn't that good. And I don't know I'm not speaking for other drone pilots. I know some people that they only have drones to find dogs. But in a subdivision, especially most of the time it's at night, in a subdivision, do you know how many dogs you find? And then you trying to figure out if it's
Rah-Rah or not. Yeah. I can't imagine.
It's not easy. So
I can't imagine. Well, give a shout out
do it.
to your Facebook page and your phone number, and he will try to come find Rah-Rah, but he can't promise that he's going to find Rah-Rah.
Well, and my Facebook is on top of it, Drone Deer Recovery. And then my phone number is...
You ain't looking for it, are you?
No, I was looking for my Facebook. I don't know that was exact.
It's on top of it, Drone Deer Recovery and Services.
There you go. But my phone number is that it's actually got a different number on the Facebook, but it goes to my personal one now. I forwarded all the calls because I got tired of being like Kevin Gates and having two phones. But and my personal number is 229-854-9120.
All right. Say that one more time.
229-854-9120.
All right. Maybe with it being said 2 times, they can write it down. If not, they can look it up on Facebook on Drone Deer Recovery and Services right there in Lee County, Georgia. Mr. Clay Martin, dude, I really appreciate you taking the time and coming on to the show. Hopefully you don't have to work too hard on this Monday. I haven't been outside since about 8:30, so I don't know if it's starting to warm up or not, but I know the last few days it's been cold enough that it made it tough to work outside.
Yeah, it's about 40 now, so that's warming on up.
Heat wave.
Yeah, heat wave.
All right. Well, we appreciate y'all taking the time and listening to today's podcast with Mr. Clay Martin. We've got another one coming up here real soon with Scotty Evans from Feather and Antler in Commerce, Georgia. We're going to do a podcast with him. Also, we've got a few other folks that I want to chat with here in the local Leesburg area and see if we can't get them on the podcast. But until next time, y'all remember, put God first and keep chasing.
All right.